From a studio high above the clouds of the Okanagan Valley, this is the Cannabis Podcast. Exploring the world of Canadian cannabis culture, one toke at a time. Now, here's your host and bud tender, Gary Johnston.
Welcome to the Cannabis Podcast. Thank you for coming by. We're going to spend the next 30 minutes or so talking about a plant I'm absolutely passionate about, and that is cannabis. Now, before we get too much further, let me remind you, this podcast is intended for those of legal consumption age in your jurisdiction and is intended purely for entertainment and perhaps educational purposes. You should always consume your cannabis responsibly. In episode 234, the government has missed the ball on cannabis reform. Removing provincial stamps seems to be forgotten to one national stamp. The image of CBD in skincare formulations is changing. And we have a story from the past, where I think about things that used to happen back when cannabis was illegal. We stop on Cultivar Corner, brought to you by Up in Smoke. We stop by the Woody Nelson Warehouse for Lemon Mac. Delightful. All of that and more on episode 234 of the Cannabis Podcast. And of course, before we get too much further, let me stop and say thank you. Thank you for being a listener of the Cannabis Podcast. Thank you for coming back each time that you do. I'm so appreciative of that. And remember, if you want to comment on anything you hear, you can do so by sending a note to info@cannabispodcast.com. Or if you want to help out, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/cannabispodcast. If you like what you hear and you feel so inclined, you're welcome to buy me a doobie. And now, let's talk about today's stories. We're picking this story up from Strachan.com. This is a case for harmonized excise stamp. Why Ottawa's easiest policy win is long overdue. In a sector strained by tight margins, regulatory complexity, and a patchwork of provincial systems, the idea of a single national excise stamp has rapidly emerged as one of the most unifying and least controversial policy reforms the industry has seen in years. Recently, Orville Bovenschen, president of Canadian Cannabis at Village Farms International, published a commentary arguing that the easiest policy win in Ottawa is hiding in plain sight. From micro-producers who find the current system prohibitive to publicly traded cannabis companies watching revenue evaporate, the message is consistent. Harmonizing the excise stamp is a practical, low-cost, high-impact fix that could instantly strengthen the regulated market. To understand the push for harmonization, it helps to consider how burdensome the current multi-stamp system has become. Producers must hold, track, forecast, and apply unique stamps for each province and territory, a logistical quagmire unheard of in other regulated industries. For Harrison Jordan, a cannabis lawyer and president of Substance Law, the inefficiencies start long before a product ever ships. It can be a demand planning nightmare, having to determine how many stamps you want to order for each province, especially if you're both selling into provincial rec markets and selling directly to patients in multiple provinces, he explains. The cost of the stamps themselves is under 1 cent each, but you're ordering against your excise stamp limit, which is calculated in accordance with the security deposit you provided with the CRA. The administrative burden is amplified by penalties and regulatory friction embedded into the system. Keeping track of different stamp varieties can be cumbersome, as you may be subject to a penalty of up to approximately $30 for each stamp you lose, he notes. Lastly, if you want to restamp a package with another province's stamp, you need to get approval from CRA to rework the product, and they generally need to witness any destruction of stamps. These inefficiencies represent real time, real money, and real constraints, especially for companies that span medicinal, recreational, and multi-provincial markets. All around, a single national stamp would help producers, and they'll take any efficiencies they can get, says Jordan. While large licensed producers can more easily absorb inefficiencies, the impact on micro-producers is far more acute. Nicholas Langor, director of KRFT Cannabis in Newfoundland and Labrador, says the current system actually prevents smaller companies from participating in the domestic market. From our standpoint as a micro-license holder, the current excise stamp framework represents a disproportionate administrative and financial burden, Langor says. The operational requirements associated with stamp acquisition, inventory management, and compliance reporting are resource-intensive and often prohibitive for smaller license holders. These challenges don't simply slow down business, they limit market access entirely. This, in effect, creates a barrier to entry into provincial supply chains and restricts the diversity and competitiveness of the market, he added. PRFT has shifted its focus toward the international B2B sector because of regulatory challenges in the domestic market. We continue to receive inquiries from Canadian consumers seeking KRFT products. Regrettably, we're unable to maintain a domestic presence due to the regulatory and financial constraints that outweigh potential returns, Langer explains. Should the system be streamlined, we would be eager to revisit our domestic strategy and contribute more directly to the Canadian market, he said. So if the need is obvious, what's stopping the federal government from moving forward? Jordan points to a core purpose of the stamp itself. The entire point of excise stamps, if it could be distilled to that, is threefold. To enable stakeholders to be reasonably satisfied that a package of a cannabis product is from a legal supplier that has paid tax on the product, to allow governments to confirm in which province a product is destined to sell to an end consumer, and for governments to know what province's excise duty should be transferred. Introducing a uniform stamp, he argues, disrupts two of these pillars. That's all to say the latter two purposes are frustrated when the stamp is a single color and doesn't identify a particular province, he says. This could be the crux of federal hesitation. Cannabis is uniquely tied to revenue sharing agreements between the federal government and provinces, and the current stamp visually identifies how that revenue should be routed. Still, Jordan believes the obstacles are solvable. The federal excise tax would need to be amended, he says. Encouragingly, it doesn't appear that the federal-provincial cannabis taxation coordination agreements address the form the stamps must take. This means Ottawa has room to act if the political will emerges. Jordan even suggests harmonization could push Canada towards modernizing the system entirely. Perhaps it leads the Department of Finance and CRA to realize, wait, why do we have these in the first place when we could just issue a digitally accessible identifier that serves the same purposes? In a world of QR code authentication, physical stamps may already be anachronistic. Some argue that harmonization benefits large LPs mostly, but Jordan rejects that idea that this is a corporate-leaning reform. It benefits everyone, but smaller license holders who otherwise wouldn't sell into as many provinces might start to, he says. Even for medical producers, harmonization unlocks entirely new opportunities. For some with a medical sales license, it could mean the difference between selling only to patients in the province they operate in versus selling to patients coast to coast across Canada. The cannabis industry rarely finds policy solutions that increase competitiveness and reduce administrative burden across all sizes of operators. Harmonization appears to be one. If a microproducer sees harmonization as a lifeline, the country's largest public cannabis companies see it as a major structural fix. Tyler Robinson, president of Cannabis at SNDL, says the impact is substantial. Implementing a harmonized national excise stamp would significantly enhance our operational planning, minimize waste, and boost efficiency, Robson says. These improvements would ultimately lead to better economic outcomes for our company, potentially saving us around $8 million in FCF. Beyond savings, Robson believes harmonization promotes fair competition. A unified excise stamp would indeed level the playing field for all producers, providing them with equitable access to distribute their products nationally, without the barriers posed by stamp-related issues, he explains. Improved forecasting, reduced waste, and less capital tied up in inventory would collectively improve sector-wide liquidity, something the cannabis industry desperately needs. If Ottawa moved ahead, the benefits to SNDO would be strategic, not financial. This move would significantly increase our profitability and domestic market presence in Canada, Robson says. With a more efficient supply chain, we would likely invest even more than we already have. This initiative would be a no-brainer for the federal government as it comes at zero cost. Across the board, the message is consistent. Harmonizing the excise stamp is inexpensive, practical, and immediately beneficial. It reduces waste, cuts red tape, strengthens competitiveness, and improves product mobility in a national market that desperately needs efficiency. It is, in effect, the rarest thing in cannabis policy, a solution no one seems to oppose. Whether Ottawa acts in the near term remains uncertain. But for this issue, the industry is speaking with one voice and saying that simplifying the excise stamp is one of the most impactful and achievable reforms available. And if the federal government is searching for an easy policy win, as Bovenshine suggested, it's not hiding anymore. And that's some great information from Shrekcan.com.
From the cannabis-infused studio in the clouds, this is the Cannabis Podcast.
And this was at the urging of my buddy Tony, who's been a good supporter of the podcast ever since we started. He just had a thought about a podcast episode you can do. For the past couple of years, he's been using a CBD topical as a facial cream. He read that CBD is very effective and as an anti-inflammatory agent. Now, he doesn't know the science behind it, but he feels there's a lot of beneficial effects. For example, he's over 50 and he doesn't have any wrinkles. Maybe you can consider doing an episode on CBD skin creams and facial creams, or just CBD products in general. I think they're more mainstream and more accepted, and they don't carry the stigma that THC does. Well, good idea, Tony. I followed up with it, and the story I have today is from, actually, everydayhealth.com. CBD for Skincare 101. Cannabidiol seems to be in everything lately, including skincare products like sunscreens, masks, lip balms, moisturizers, and more. While there is some evidence that CBD may have beneficial effects on skin issues like eczema, acne, and aging skin, more research needs to be done to confirm a clear connection. Here's what we know so far about CBD's potential as a skincare solution. CBD is a chemical compound found in the leaves, stems, and flowers of cannabis plants, which includes hemp and marijuana. However, CBD doesn't create psychoactive effects like tetrahydrocannabinol, the component in cannabis plants known as causing a high. Well, the only use for CBD that's approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, is in the epilepsy drug Epidiolex. CBD does appear to be helpful in managing anxiety, insomnia, and chronic pain. CBD is primarily included in skincare products for its calming, anti-inflammatory, and antioxidant properties, says Hannah Koppelman, DEO, a dermatologist in Edgewater, New Jersey. Many patients find that CBD-infused products help soothe irritation, calm redness, and maintain hydration. While the anecdotal feedback is often positive, I always emphasize that we're still waiting on more definitive clinical studies to fully confirm these skincare benefits. Research on CBD in skincare is ongoing. In the meantime, there is some evidence to support its positive effects on the following skin complaints: inflammation, eczema, and psoriasis. Some research suggests that topical CBD may help to relieve the itchiness, pain, and inflammation associated with eczema and psoriasis. Topical products containing CBD may have a positive impact on the skin simply because many come in cream form along with many other helpful ingredients. This makes it hard to conclude that the CBD itself is what is making an impact, especially given that moisturizers in general tend to have a positive effect on psoriasis. That said, studies on the effects of CBD on eczema, psoriasis, and associated pain, itching, and inflammation suggest that the ingredient could also help repair the skin barrier. A number of things can cause acne, but the result is commonly an inflamed bump on the skin due to sebum, dead skin, and bacteria buildup with pores. CBD might be helpful in treating acne because there is evidence that it can help reduce inflammation and impact sebum production, and that it has antibacterial properties. A review published in 2022 highlights a small study that found that hemp and cannabis seeds were found to protect skin cells from the overproduction of inflammatory radicals and nitric oxides, which supports the use of hemp-derived products, including CBD, as an anti-inflammatory treatment. Another review notes that CBD is known to normalize pro-acne agents in the sebacous glands and may also have antimicrobial properties against certain types of staph bacteria. Wrinkles and aging. Some evidence suggests that CBD may help wrinkles and even prevent them. One review noted that CBD may help with skin aging by making skin cells grow faster and reducing signs of aging. It also helps reduce damage in skin cells that have aged, and this may be what Tony is experiencing. CBD has made its way into many skincare products, including face oils, serums, moisturizers, masks, and even sunscreens, says Heather D. Rogers, MD, a dermatologist in Seattle. It's often marketed for its anti-inflammatory and soothing properties, but the actual benefits remain largely unproven in well-designed clinical studies. Here are some products that contain CBD. Face oils are typically used to nourish and lock moisture into the skin, especially in dry and dehydrated skin. Serums are lightweight water or oil-based liquids with concentrated ingredients to address specific skin concerns like dryness, uneven tone, or dullness. Moisturizers help keep skin hydrated and comfortable by supporting its natural barrier, and they are available as creams, lotions, serums, or gels. Masks provide a targeted treatment for the skin and are often used to refresh, hydrate, or clarify. And sunscreens are designed to protect the skin from ultraviolet light exposure and come in various formulations for different skin types. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention cautions against any products derived from cannabis during pregnancy or while breastfeeding, saying, "The potential health effects of using cannabidiol CBD products during pregnancy are currently unknown." Rogers and Kopelman advise their patients to steer clear of CBD-containing products if they're pregnant. Right now, we just don't have the data on CBD's safety during pregnancy or breastfeeding. So there's some tips of what you can do for CBD. There are some further ones in the story that can tell you some other things you can do, but I think that gives you enough information to know that we truly don't know whether CBD is going to be effective. And it comes down to the thing that I've been talking about many times, in that CBD has become this wonderful drug that it fixes everything. And it doesn't. But Tony, or perhaps CBD in your skincare cream may be what you're looking for.
THC, CBD, terpene profiles, what's in me? Oh, please explain to me. Cultivar Corner, Cultivar Corner, oh yeah. Cultivar Corner, please explain this stuff to me.
Welcome to Cultivar Corner, brought to you by Up and Smoke at 258 West Broadway in Vancouver, and online at itsupandsmoke.com. Remember, if you live in BC and you are 19 years of age or older, you can go to their online menu, find something you want, have it sent to you via the postal system. If you live in Vancouver and you order by 2 p.m. that day, they can send something to you by e-scooter. Matthew and Sarah at Up and Smoke doing a great job in deliveries, both mail order and in the Vancouver itself. And what are we doing today? We are doing one from the Woody Nelson Warehouse, which is they're collecting a whole bunch of different growers and just getting a bunch of weed out to us. Woody Nelson Warehouse today, it's Lemon Mac, which is Lemon Mac and Who's Your Daddy? Available for a limited time only. This edition of the Lemon Mac genetic, grown by J.R. Strain at their indoor facility in Cranbrook using aeroponics. This sativa-dominant cultivar is rich in terpenes, including terpinolene, caryophyllene, and farnesene, with notes of sour lemons. The plant's dense, frosty buds are hand-trimmed and cured for a minimum of 3 weeks. And the package we have today that we picked up at Spirit Leaf was packaged on October 17th, 2025, so less than a month ago. Let's pull out one of these buds and let's take a look. We're looking at one of the buds. So this is the Lemon Mac, and lots of deep green and lots of red hairs. A fair amount of trichomes hanging on the buds. It's nice conical shape, and they're probably all about that shape. And there's some nice lemon when you go into the jar. Oh yeah, I got some lemon and some caryophyllene. So what do they say on Lemon Mac when we go to the Woody Nelson Warehouse? The newest product line from Woody Nelson is also our most affordable yet. A curated selection of as-is products from our favorite craft growers. A budget-friendly option for those who know and appreciate great quality. And we certainly do appreciate great quality. So 25.2% is the THC. The terps, 2.2%. And I have the same thing on my package. Yes, I do, 2.17. And the aromas is sour lemons. Yeah, there's definitely some sour lemons in there. So the caryophyllene and the limonene tying up, giving me a bit of a sour note to my lemons. So let's get some weed rolled. Get it for consumption. Corners. Even the fact that the podcast is coming to a conclusion in a few more episodes, dropping the Cannabis podcast for a while, and we're going to take a break. Going to do some other things and see how it goes, but we're still doing it now. And every time we do a Cultivar Corner, we just love getting that weed into us. I love straight joints. I'm not into the curves. I don't like joints that come to a point. I find that they get really harsh towards the end, so I'm going to keep it with a straight joint. And this is Lemon Mac. So this was grown by J.R. Strain at their indoor facility in Cranbrook. So they're bringing another grower to the market and allowing you access to this, and it was pretty cheap. We're ready to go. So premium smalls, it's available in 3.5 grams and 28 grams. This is Lemon Mac, which is Lemon Mac and Who's Your Daddy? 25.2%, nice conical buds you'll see on the picture there, and lots of green, lots of red hairs, and let's give it a try to Lemon Mac. Okay. Oh, nice and smooth. Oh, I love that first taste of a joint in the morning, and it doesn't make me cough. I really enjoyed that. There is a touch of lemon that's happening here, notes of sour lemons. I can definitely feel that, and I can taste that. So the caryophyllene is coming on and getting a little bit of a spice to the lemons that we're picking up. It is a sativa, so I'm looking for some good action in my endocannabinoid system today as it takes over my system and gets me ready for another day. Another day of what? I don't know, but we're still going to be doing it. Oh, there we go. And there is my Mighty up to speed. I can take the joint away for a bit, and let's try it from the Mighty. Lemon Mac, and Who's Your Daddy? Oh, my. When we put it in the vaporizer, we get so much more of that flavor. I'm always astounded how much flavor comes out of the vaporizer. Hand-trimmed, cured for a minimum of 3 weeks. That seems to be a standard that people are going for. It's a really nice taste coming out of the vaporizer. No harshness at all. I have not felt a need to cough at all during my smoking today. And as you know, that can sometimes happen with Cultivar Corners. They can kind of hit me from behind when I wasn't expecting that. But I am not expecting that today. It is smooth. Okay, and how long is it going to be before it kind of hits me? A couple of tokes off of the Mighty. We're going to fire up the joint again. Get my room filled with the smell of marijuana. That's one of my favorite smells in the morning. Lemon Mac and Who's Your Daddy is what this cross is. Oh, really nice on the joint. And back to the vaporizer. Oh yeah, that Lemon Mac, that sour lemons is really a predominant taste in everything you're smoking today. Where I start to feel this in my endocannabinoid system. My eyes are having a little tinge of happy eyes at the edges of them. My euphoria, it's kind of starting. And feeling a nice, in terms of my body stone, that feels really good. Oh yeah, I think this is going to be a sativa for a nice day to get some stuff done. Here we are in the fall. Fall has jumped on us before summer. We were ready to leave summer, but it's here. Oh, this is really nice for a sativa daytime. Saved a bit of money. This wasn't really expensive. Also, their most affordable yet is what Woody Nelson is telling us. Oh. Oh, I I just love the way my endocannabinoid system comes alive when the weed that I'm tasting and enjoying is having an effect on my body. And I always enjoy that. Now, let me remind you that Cultivar Corner is brought to you by Up and Smoke at 258 West Broadway in Vancouver and online at itsupandsmoke.com. Remember, if you are 19 years of age or older and you live in BC, you can have something sent to you from the online menu, or if you live in Vancouver, you can order by 2 p.m. that day and get something sent to you by e-scooter. Matthew and Sarah at Up and Smoke doing a great job in city deliveries and mail order deliveries, and Lemon Mac from Woody's Warehouse. So this is from J.R. Strain, grown in their Cranbrook facility. I think I'm enjoying it. Yeah, not really stoned, but kind of a nice little high. And there's nothing wrong with a nice little high. Yeah, I'm enjoying this. From Woody's Warehouse, Lemon Mac, and Who's Your Daddy? Another satisfying Cultivar Corner. Oh, I need to do a little update. It has been rolling around in my endocannabinoid system for a few minutes now, and this is feeling a lot more stoned. As it works its way into my head, and I start to feel all of those lovely notes happening in my brain. This is one of my favorite things of smoking cannabis and for doing sativas. I just love the feel of the sativas in the daytime. Oh, they feel so good. I am loving the Lemon Mac.
Sharing stories about good weed while trying good weed. This is the Cannabis Podcast.
And we go to the ounce.ca for the next story today, and this was written by Pat Palmer. Canadians want cannabis modernization, but are let down. Polls showing Canadian support for modernizing regulations to help the cannabis industry grow apparently came along too late for the federal government. Abacus Data conducted a poll for cannabis company Organigram Global. It showed Canadians not only support helping the industry, but they see no political downside to doing so. Even so, there was close to nothing about cannabis in the recent federal budget. The budget once again ignores the urgent needs of Canada's legal cannabis sector and fails to address the broken policy framework that continues to undermine one of the country's most promising industries, said industry group Cannabis Council of Canada. 7 years after legalization, Canada's cannabis sector continues to face structural barriers that threaten its viability, said Paul McCarthy, president of C3, as it calls itself in a news release. By refusing to act, the government is undermining confidence in legalization itself. In the Abacus Organigram poll released 6 days before the budget, nearly 6 in 10 respondents, or 59%, believe the federal government should do more to support jobs and innovation in the sector. Canadians are ready for the legal cannabis sector to become a pillar of our economic growth strategy, said Bina Goldenberg, CEO Organigram Global. There is a clear public mandate for government to modernize how cannabis is treated. At a time when economic headwinds are blowing north from Washington, many Canadians appear ready to double down on homegrown economic sectors that can offer stable jobs and export potential, David Coletta and Kelly Bennett wrote in a policy analysis. Legal cannabis is increasingly viewed not only as a normalized consumer product, but as a sector worth investing in, supporting, and growing. The data reveals a clear political opening for federal leaders. Cannabis is not a liability. It is an opportunity. The industry was offered a ray of hope when a fall economic statement in 2024 indicated the government would look at eliminating the requirement to have a different excise stamp for each province. But that was under a different Liberal Prime Minister. The industry says multiple stamps is a costly way to do business. One of the clearest examples of government indifference is the failure to move forward with a single national excise stamp for cannabis. The system forces producers to apply and manage 13 separate provincial and territorial stamps, a logistical nightmare that costs the industry an estimated $100 million every year in wasted time, packaging, materials, and labor. The failure to deliver a single national stamp has become the clearest example of government neglect, McCarthy said. It's an arbitrary system they created, one that benefits no one. The cannabis industry would also like excise taxes to be reduced. Tax rates were set on a per-gram basis at legalization when it was thought cannabis prices would be a lot higher than they turned out to be. Producers still pay a flat $1 per gram levy that results in an effective tax rate of approximately 34%, the C3 said. The only item in the budget about cannabis was this. The budget reduces the amount the government reimburses veterans for medically prescribed cannabis from $8.50 per gram to $6 per gram. The budget document notes the current rate is significantly above the market price. Support for the industry is inconsistent across regions and political views. The Abacus Organogram poll shows a majority, 59%, say the legal cannabis sector is an important contributor to Canada's economy. Nearly 6 in 10 Canadians, 59%, chose updating the rules to support economic growth and consumer needs rather than maintaining strict limits. Two-thirds, 67% of Liberal voters, supported making it easier for the industry to grow, and 68% were open to federal investment in expanding new product categories. More than 70% said it would be good or okay if Canada became a global leader in wellness-focused cannabis products. Three-quarters would welcome breakthroughs in cannabis-based pain and anxiety treatments. The same number supported a failure in which legal cannabis generates $5 billion in tax revenue. The poll also showed 47% want economic departments like industry or agriculture involved in cannabis policy decisions alongside Health Canada. 43% want tougher enforcement against the illegal market, which is also one of C3's demands. 33% want lower business taxes for producers, and 31% want the government to support new product categories like edibles, beverages, and wellness items. Just prior to the budget, C3 commissioned its own poll from Polara Research and found Canadians continue to accept legalization, 65%, with 41% expressing outright approval, 24% ambivalent, and 29% disapproving. 7 in 10 Canadians support the federal government improving efforts to combat the illegal cannabis market, helping the Canadian cannabis companies to become global leaders, and reducing the excise tax. The 2025 budget shows the government's willingness to invest in the future of Canadian industries. It's time they extend that same invitation to the industry they created, one with enormous economic potential, proven success, and deep roots in Canadian innovation. And wouldn't it be nice to hear that the government is following some of that advice?
Exploring the world of Canadian cannabis culture, one toke at a time. This is the Cannabis Podcast.
There is one aspect to doing the podcast that I have to say I haven't kept up. I know a lot of you enjoyed when I would have a story about my use of cannabis back in the old days, back before cannabis was legal, and we were doing it everywhere we were not supposed to be doing it. And I guess I've gotten away from it. And I guess it's because I don't remember things very well. I don't remember all of the stories that I used to have. So some I've kind of brought back. And in fact, this one may be a repeat because I'm coming towards the end of the podcast. I could be repeating some stories here, but this one's interesting because I noticed that the radio station that I came to Kelowna to work at, which was CKOV at the time, that were the call letters of the radio station, and then FM 104 was the FM side of things. And that radio station was at the corner of Lakeshore and Cook Roads here in Kelowna. When I came to Kelowna, had an interview at that station, and it was out there by itself. There was a big field behind the station and nobody around. Well, there's a lot around there now, and in fact, I just heard the station has actually been torn down. They've moved the station to somewhere else. Obviously, they're still broadcasting. But I had no idea that the radio station was no more. But it made me think of a fabulous backyard barbecue in the summer that we had at CKOV at the time. And I won't tell you who owned the radio station at the time, but maybe you can figure it out. It was one of those days where It was just a beautiful day. The sun was shining. We were drinking some beer. We were getting things along. And there's nobody behind the station. I mean, we could sit in the back patio and nobody would come around. We didn't know anybody there. So the party was going along. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to smoke a joint. But rather than hiding it and hiding off on the side, I thought, you know what? I'm going to be cool about this. I'm going to go to my boss. I'm going to say, are you fine? Can I roll some joints and we can just share? And surprisingly enough, he said yes. So I set myself up at the patio picnic table and started rolling some joints and then handed them out to those who wanted them. It didn't happen often, but it did happen, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a lovely time from my perspective to share some time together and to be able to do so when we're stoned. That was really, it amazed me. There were a lot of people at that radio station who loved smoking cannabis as much as I did. And it's a fond memory. It may not mean much to you. And now, as I say, with the radio station gone, nobody's going to worry about whether anything happened or who it was, because those days were long gone. That was 1983. That's how long ago that was. It was probably 85, maybe. Maybe I'd been there a year or two. But that's another story I have from my memory bank, so I'll see if I can come up with more to fill you in with a little more detail before we come to the end of the Cannabis Podcast. There's a bit of melancholy with me on that. Our goal when we started this edition of the Cannabis Podcast was to finish one, to come to the conclusion of another episode. And by golly, I think we've accomplished our goal. It's a limited goal. It's not a terribly deep goal, but it's still a goal. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so appreciative of the fact that you are here. Remember, you can send a note to info@cannabispodcast.com with any comments you have on anything you hear on the show. And now it's time for the worst world's dad jokes. The words teasers, the worst dad jokes from the game that I got last Christmas. This is my stepladder. I never knew my real ladder. What did the janitor say when he jumped out of the closet? Supplies! Some of them are just so cute. What do you call a king who's only 12 inches tall? A ruler. And when my girlfriend is sad, I let her draw on my body. Sometimes she just needs a shoulder to crayon. So sick. But I love them. I hope you had some fun. I hope you learned some things today that you didn't know yesterday, and you are a more educated person today. That's it from the guy in the clouds for episode 234 of the Cannabis Podcast.
From the Cannabis-infused studio, high above the Okanagan Valley, this was the Cannabis Podcast.